Hello, Antioch Community High School. My name is Caleb Zaborski, and welcome back to your weekly weather forecast, number 28. Let's hop right into next week. So, this week, spring break, finally. We're seeing, obviously, we don't have that many sports going on, but for the first 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, we have varsity baseball going on. Let's hop right into the temperatures, though. For Monday, the 24th, we have a high of around high 30s and a low around high 20s. So, see, overall this week, a little bit colder than what we've been enjoying the past week or two. So just keep that in mind as you go to sporting events. It might be just a little bit chilly. For that, low is of high 20s as well. For Tuesday, very, very similar. A high of high 30s and a low of high 20s. Wednesday just gets a little bit warmer with a high in the low 40s, but the low still in the high 20s. But, see Thursday and Friday, the same temperatures, but it gets even warmer. High around mid-40s and a low in the low 30s. Once again, same for Friday. And then it might get just a little bit colder on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, a high around low 40s and a low in the high 20s. And then Sunday, high in the mid-30s and a low in the mid-20s. Just a thing to keep out for this as I'm seeing, when I do my forecast like in the spring and the fall, because of how volatile the weather can be, especially with like finding like these systems that bring up like the Gulf moisture and all that dry air, that's only an issue. When I'm forecasting, let's say a week out, there's a lot of variability in the models. So what I'm going to say about this is you could take it up 10 degrees probably. It's very unlikely that it goes any colder than this. So you could probably see highs around 50s. Probably not 60, but like a 50s and 40s probably more common than what you see right now. But going on into the temperature outlook, it says near normal for us, so that kind of goes along with what you saw, obviously on the slides, but also what I've been saying. Just kind of keep an eye out for temperatures being above average than even what the slides have been showing. Going on, once again, precipitation. I know we've been dealing with some rain and some weird snow events, especially last Wednesday. But it should be around near normal. We get a couple of showers. Do not expect snow, so maybe some rain. Going on. So we overall, we've not been experiencing that many tornadoes, but we just recently had this huge outbreak. 2 actually. So this is it. The tornado outbreak of March 14th through the 15th. Also had a little bit of tornadoes on the 16th. But that's arguably not as important what happened on these 2 days. Alright, so I'm going to go down to a couple of statistics about this. The max risk was a high risk. This is the first one since May 6, 2024. So once again, very rare for these to be issued. You see anywhere from 0 to maybe at the max 4 per year. But on average, you see 1 or maybe 2. So once again, very rare event that occurred. The models are showing just some absolutely insane stuff in terms of what the parameters were. So the environment, at least forecasted, was going to be on par with like generational, even super outbreaks, as much as I do not like saying that. The models really showed a horrible event going on. But we had a couple of limiting factors. That's a longer story to get into, but I'll say that we avoided a much worse event. But even then, I mean, we still had a ton of stuff, as I'm about to get in right now. So for the 14th, that was an evening to overnight threat. Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas mostly, and like one in Mississippi. But then the main event, well, at least quote unquote main event, at least forecasted, that was the morning evening threat for the 15th. Mostly in the deep south, so thinking Alabama and Mississippi. But we had 42 fatalities with this event. Could go higher, I don't really know. Fatalities are usually pretty easy to solidify down, a week after the event. But this was the highest fatality count since December 10th, 2021, at least for tornado outbreaks. And if you recall what happened then, that was the Mayfield EF4. So once again, we are on par with already dangerous outbreaks with this. A total count of tornadoes, from what I've read, could be an upwards of 85 tornadoes. I do expect it goes up as they look at like tornado tracks and say, oh, this tornado actually dissipated, but then it reformed. So that's actually 2 tornadoes instead of just 1, even though it's from the same cell. But in terms of like significant tornadoes, we had, once again, all this is preliminary, 26 EF2 tornadoes, could be higher, probably not lower. Then we had 8 EF3 tornadoes, which is absolutely insane. Just a ton of EF3s. As shown in this graphic, most of them occurred in Arkansas and Missouri. We had maybe 1 or 2 down south in Mississippi on the next day, so the 15th. Something to keep in mind is that 2 of those EF3 tornadoes are currently rated at 165 plus miles per hour. So what that means is that if they find any, so if the people who survey damage, if they say, okay, this originally looked like an EF3 damage, but they review it and they say, oh, it actually took a stronger tornado to knock down this building or do this kind of damage, and they upgrade it to 170 miles per hour, that would be an EF4. So we're very close to having even more EF4 tornadoes than we already had. And once again, for the EF4 tornadoes, we had 3 of them, which was the first time since the Easter outbreak of 2020, so that was April 12th to the 13th, to have 3 violent tornadoes in a 24-hour period. Violent, once again, EF4 to EF5. Something to keep in mind with the strongest of the tornadoes, the Diaz, Arkansas, EF4 at 190 miles per hour. Now that tornado, there was some discourse going on about whether it should be EF5 or this or that, but we had a pioneer in the field of surveying damage, Tim Marshall. He said after looking at a house that got entirely swept off the foundation, things that hold the house in place were bent, snapped, pulled away, but because the roof was not fully intact, like it was only being held together with like nails instead of something else, like hurricane clips, that's why they could not rate it EF5. I'm guaranteeing that the tornado was of EF5 strength, but because the Fujita scale is a damage scale, not a wind scale, that's why we're not going to see an EF5. And that's kind of why we've been seeing no EF5s. We've had a drought for 12 years now for an EF5 tornado. And we've had many, many tornadoes of EF5 strength. So, once again, the ratings don't even matter that much. What you want to know is that these tornadoes did damage, they were widespread, they hit towns, and once again, just an absolute crazy event that still could have been worse. But going on, that kind of does it for your weekly forecast, but this is just kind of overview of that event. Once again, it was still a 3-day severe weather outbreak, but most tornadoes occurred on the 14th and the 15th. We kind of dubbed the 14th the Pi Day outbreak because it was March 14th. But obviously, looking at this, many long-tracking supercells that had the chance to produce tornadoes, like the one down here that was Tylertown, Mississippi, there were actually 2 tornadoes, one that was an EF4, one that was an EF3, and they maybe were within a couple miles of each other. They were 30 minutes apart, but they basically hit the town twice, which was absolutely insane. Then obviously our long trackers in Arkansas, Missouri, and kind of Illinois as well. But that does it for your weekly weather forecast, number 28.